Today we're going to take a look at Searchie to see, can you use it as a blog? And also importantly, should you use it as a blog? Hi, my name is William Beam with Suburbia Press. It is a small website development agency. So if you need help developing a website or developing your Searchie site, please let me know. There'll be contact information down below, but basically you can go to suburbiapress.com/contact and fill out a message there. So this video comes up from a question that I got recently from somebody who was looking at Searchie and wondering, can I do a blog with Searchie? Can I use this with WordPress? What should I do? And that sort of question. And that kind of brought back to mind some things that I've done in the past. I had a site that was a WordPress site. I used the Buddy Boss theme, Wishlist Member, and also LearnDash and some other plugins. And I was trying to do everything on one site. It was my blog, which was publicly facing. It was also my membership site, which was private. And although it worked, it was a lot of effort to try and make that work. I have since decided that it's best that my publicly facing blog is WordPress and it is publicly facing. And my private area, I moved to Searchie. And I'm very happy that I did. Not that there's anything wrong with Wishlist Member or with LearnDash, but if I had to use those again, I would set up a different WordPress implementation and make it completely private for whatever that purpose was. Since I already had Searchie, it was an easier way for me to migrate that way. So they're good solutions all the way around. But what I'm really recommending is you probably want to separate your public facing and your private membership area from each other. So let's go ahead and take a look inside of Searchie hubs, and I'll show you some ideas of what you can do and maybe why I wouldn't do it with Searchie. All right, so let's go in here and I'm going to go to the dashboard of my testing hub. And I'm on the business plan. That's why I've got so many hubs. With the business plan, you have unlimited hubs. And I think you get maybe one hub with the basic plan, and the pro plan, I think, gives you 3 hubs, but we can look into that. But the first thing you want to look at is your settings. And this is where you're going to determine the privacy. And you've got really 2 options. You can see right here, private. So you restrict access. People will have to register to get inside, and public. That kind of tells you right off the bat, you're not going to be able to use Searchie to mix a public blog with a private membership area. So you would have to use at least 2 hubs if you decide to use Searchie that way. And as I said, I'm of the opinion that WordPress is a better choice to set up for your publicly facing blog. You've got a lot more themes, plugins, and opportunities there. So for example, on Searchie Hub, if you wanted to add something for a lead magnet, well, you don't have any plugins that you can put in here. So you can't use something like Opt-in Monster is a popular one. Bloom from Elegant Themes. Those are things that allow you to capture people's email and address and their name and so forth, give them maybe a freebie. That doesn't exist on Searchie. Now you can use a Searchie hub as a lead magnet. So for example, I have one where I have my podcast from another site and people can register there. I'll get their email address and then they can search the podcast as much as they want. So that's how you can use Searchie as a lead magnet itself. But if you're trying to do multiple lead magnets on one site, then Searchie doesn't really give you an opportunity for that. You either register for the site that's private or you don't. And if it's public, there's no registration, so you're not capturing any information. So this is your first thing you have to decide on. Is this going to be public or private? Now let's go ahead and go into the hub itself. And I'm going to click over here on Customize. So you can set something up here. You can have a call to action, and you can have buttons and so forth. But let's create a new page. So we come over here to Pages. We're going to click on New Page, and we're going to add a section. And of course, this is how you add things to your page. You can have feature, you can have scrolls, grids, search, and carousels, and so forth. And then you can have your layout in a few places. So you can have something that looks like a right sidebar type of image. So there you've got, this might be your sidebar on a blog, and this might be your content that you would have. So you can put in a headline, subheadline, paragraph, images, all of those things that you're thinking of in a blog, you can put in here. And let's go ahead and say that we want to add to this. And keep in mind, this sidebar over here doesn't have to be all the way down. So you notice that we added a section, but within this section over here, we could continue to add more. So over here, we could have in a paragraph, And I'm just going to leave this text over here. And then you can have an image if you want to. So let's see if we have an image that we can put in here. Okay, so we've got our image in there, and this I just pulled over from Canva. And you can keep on adding things down over here. Now, what you may be able to do is insert some custom CSS if you need to. You can come over here, and that'll give you access to change your image. And if you want to target something, you can put a URL in here so it can link to something. And you can click this so it can open a new tab. So those are all things that you can do. You can also change the alignment. So let's say that we want to put this over to the side or center or whatever. And you can even change the visibility. You can make it full width. You can have custom settings for how wide it's going to be. And those are all things that you can do with your image. So as you see, we have a lot of opportunity here to put things in that you would put in a blog. But let's go back. There's more to adding headlines, text, images, videos, what you may want to see, than just doing this. You've also got to think about what is your page title going to be. So in other words, the SEO settings that you're going to put in there, where do you put that in? And you can do this for a page, but there's no metadata that I'm seeing in here. And of course, if you have this public or private, you can show this to everyone with hub access. You can show this to hide it basically to nobody, or you can show this only to a specific audience. But what you don't have here, if this is private, is a way to show this to anyone who doesn't have hub access. In other words, people who haven't registered for your hub. So you can show this to everyone who has access to your hub. If you have a public hub, anybody who visits the site can see this one. If you have a private hub, everybody who has access to that site can see it, or you can restrict it so that it's only visible by people in an audience who have certain criteria. Maybe they're in a membership tier or something of that nature. So once we've built our pages out, we can exit this editor, and now we can come take a look at our settings. And there is a place down here for the site overall. So you can have the title of your site, you can have a description, your author, and keywords that you want to put in here. If you want to put in some social media thumbnails, you can do that as well too. But keep in mind, that's really going to show up on the home page. You're not going to have individual SEO for each page. And I think that is something where Searchie is expecting probably that you're only going to try and do SEO on your front page where people first come to visit your site, but not the individual pages. So in other words, ranking on search engines like Google or Bing or anything else is going to be much more difficult because you can't put in this SEO data per page. Search engines rank pages, not sites. And that is a limitation that we see here in Searchie. So I think that there's a lot of information here that I think is interesting. You can put in your tracking information if you want to use Google Tag Manager, Analytics, or Facebook Pixel. You can have emails really with these three templates that say welcome. A magic link is in case someone's forgotten their password, and you can send a message to their email link that'll give them access, and then they can do a password reset. But that's really it. You can, of course, put in your domain, and you can change your privacy. But when you're in the site itself, when you're working on those pages, and we'll come back over here to customize. So for this page, we don't have anything in here that shows us how to customize this page, or even over here for another page to customize the SEO stuff. You can change the slug perhaps, and you can give the page a title, but that's it. You don't have all of the information that you need to rank a blog on Searchie. That may change in the future at some point. I don't know if that's on the roadmap or not. For right now, that is why I would recommend using WordPress for your publicly facing information and things that you want to rank on search engines, and using Searchie for your membership, your courses, or your private information. I think that's what it does best. And I don't worry about SEO on Searchie so much because it is private. I do all of my marketing on my WordPress blog, and then I can get people to register by clicking a button there. And that could bring them either to maybe my ThriveCart site if I'm going to charge them something, or I can bring them to my Searchie page to register for a private page. So for example, my photography site, I have a private hub, and there are courses on it, but there's also information that is free. So it's a private site. You can register for free on my photography site, get access to my podcast episodes. So the Searchie's already transcribed all of those. And I've got a few other things that I put out on that site that are available as free. So that's how I use Searchie as a lead magnet. I don't use it on my WordPress site to have private information. Another reason why I prefer having users on Searchie rather than WordPress is because WordPress has potential security problems for every login, even those that are not administrative accounts. And I say that because plugins are probably the most notorious place. One recent site that I saw or did a survey of security errors on WordPress, and I think I said that plugins were like 95% thereabout of the problem. It's not so much the themes, it's not so much WordPress itself, though there can be problems there. Plugins typically have the exploitive problems, and they get fixed, but when they're not fixed yet and someone figures out how to get in there, then sometimes they can do things that will show them all of the accounts on your WordPress site, or maybe they can use a simple customer user account and elevate its privileges based upon a flaw in a plugin. I keep up to date on that. I subscribe to services that let me know what are common vulnerabilities inside of plugins and what are their fixes, or if there's no fix. But I don't have to worry about that with Searchie. Users can log in. I don't have to worry about performance. They've got a much better data center handling Searchie and that environment than I have on my WordPress site. So that is why I think Searchie is a great place to put your user login and the content that goes with it for private things. And then your WordPress site is the best place for you to do your marketing and your public information. So that is kind of what I'm thinking, and that's what I wanted to show you in this video. You can do things on Searchie sort of like a blog. It's not as convenient. It doesn't have as many capabilities as WordPress does right now. And also, it's going to be either totally public or totally private. So keep that in mind when you're deciding. My advice is use WordPress for public and use Searchie for your private stuff, and I think you'll be in very good shape. Thanks very much for spending a little time for me today. I hope you like this. If you're planning on using Searchie, let me know. Reach out to support@suburbiapress.com. If you buy using my link, which I'll put in the description below, I will give you a couple of hours of one-on-one training time to help you get onboarded and up to speed with Searchie faster. They do have a wonderful academy that shows a lot of things, and they do regular meetings. But there are some things I think that it's best when you can ask questions and you can see how things work. And if you need someone to build out your Searchie site for you, I'm available for that as well too, and we can discuss that as possible. So those are some options. If you like this video, please go ahead, click the like button, subscribe. That helps the channel grow. You'll see more videos coming out if you click the notification bell, and it'll send you a message. Thanks so much. I'll see you again in the next video.